recognize those people or businesses that have really been successful. And what we start to do is we replicate it. I mean, for me, using high level as the foundation to what we sell, if I tried to sell that like Sean, I'm going to burn bad because we have totally different personalities. But the truth is he's so genuine and authentic of who he is that people love him for it.
Yeah.
But if he tried to be Amiee Ball or somebody else, it would never fly. So that authenticity comes into the sales process because not only does it build trust for you, but it allows people to connect with you and really understand who you are as a person.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another podcast session with our high-level spotlight sessions, where we bring in top players to either show you new strategies or give you a review of things, or even just provide some great insights of how you can launch your agency business, consulting business, SaaS business, whatever it is. Today, I have the great Amiee Ball. I want to say I met Amiee back in the day with the Ryan Stewman community and a lot of the great entrepreneurs there. And I've heard great things about Amiee from our co-founder, Rob and Alex as well. Amiee has worked with tens and thousands of business owners in general as a consultant. I know she done a lot of work in the corporate space with big brands as well. All in all, one of the sales experts that I would consider that everybody should pay attention to. Amiee, welcome to our spotlight sessions.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to start waking up and recording what you just said and playing it for myself every day.
Awesome. Amiee, tell us your story. Give us the story of like how you got started and how you got here. And what I want to do is share a little bit about the topic we have planned and some of the things there so people can have a lot of practical takeaways from this podcast session as well. But tell us first about your journey.
Yeah. So I grew up in corporate like a lot of us do, slinging services to Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. About 12 years ago, I started my little side hustle on the side as a digital marketing company because I figured I could sell leads and build these little websites, no big deal. That went off pretty successfully, pretty quickly. And I learned exactly that it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be to run a business. Like I think a lot of us do. I was kind of underwater quite a bit. So from there, I went into software and some consulting and things like that. But over the years, just trying to scale, I discovered high level, like we were talking about earlier. And with the software even that we had developed and other things that I had used, the ease of use and the user-friendly platform and just the customization that you could get down to with the nitty-gritty and the coding and the APIs and everything just made it a really good tool for us to use in the consulting and software world. So that's kind of where I am now. That's where we kind of focus, and I kind of go to is not so much digital marketing anymore. I like to say we're the unmarketing company, kind of more focused on building trust to harness growth.
Absolutely. So Amiee and I were just chatting before we decided to start the recording, and we were just brainstorming some things that we wanted to make sure we talk about. And one of the three pillars that Amiee and a lot of her teachings and a lot of the things that she has is it's called the ReKeying Strategy, right? And I asked Amiee, hey, Amiee, can you take that and apply it to SaaS launches or agency launches or even consulting launches? Can you share a little bit about that, how you came up with that or how you put that together?
Yeah. So one of the cool things that I've discovered in business is you have, and it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in, whether it's marketing or software, or you are selling, beach blankets on the beach. It doesn't matter. Typically, when we get into it, we have some type of interest in it, but we've also seen other people be successful in it. Right? So it's like, okay, well, they're doing it. Surely I can do it too. So what we do is we start to recognize those people or businesses that have really been successful. And what we start to do is we replicate it, right? We take the solution and we white label it, or we take the idea and we bring it to market. But a lot of times when we do that, we miss that third part of the strategy, which is to revolutionize it. So it's really easy to recognize and replicate, not so much to revolutionize, right? So that's kind of where people get stuck, is between that second and that third step, because they're never taking it and making it their own. I mean, for me, using high level as the foundation to what we sell, if I tried to sell that like Sean, I'm going to burn bad, because we have totally different personalities. But the truth is, he's so genuine and authentic of who he is that people love him for it.
Yeah.
But if he tried to be Amiee Ball or somebody else, it would never fly. So that authenticity comes into the sales process, because not only does it build trust for you, but it allows people to connect with you and really understand who you are as a person. And then you're able to sell something that's differentiated from everybody else in the marketplace, even though it's kind of the same.
Understood. So what you're saying is, we typically, in the ReKeying strategy, that is ReKey, ReKeying strategy, a lot of times we see familiar players that's already established, and we take inspiration from them or ideas from them. But a lot of times we don't put our sauce on it. We don't individualize it. We don't spice it up to the point where it's authentic. And because of that, that trust factor is never there. People have seen something similar, but they're like, this doesn't feel like the same energy that I would trust. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly it. And that's the problem, because the marketing world, just business, the economy in general, has gotten so slimy over the years. People don't know who to trust. Business owners have been burnt. People, opportunists that are trying to get into business, are being burnt by course creators. And, and it's unfortunately, it's just the way of the world now. And so when you're getting into this and you're using these copy and paste cookie cutter frameworks, it's not a bad thing that you're doing that, because it's actually teaching you a process that works, but you have to take that process and make it your own.
Absolutely. So what are some examples that you can provide for SaaS or agency owners? Because I think the idea of, let's funnel hack our way through this, or, copy and paste snapshots or whatever it is. Like, what are some things that you notice as you deal with agency owners?
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned, the copy and paste snapshots. I mean, you figure if somebody's buying, that's one thing I've never done. Kudos to all of you who sell them and make money off of them. I'm sure they're great. But the challenge is, again, if you're getting this snapshot, guess what? There's probably 100 other people getting it too. So what are you going to use that's different about that snapshot? And a lot of times people will blame the creator and be like, oh, the snapshot didn't work, or I can't land clients with it, or whatever it is. But that's not the case. The case is taking it and making it yours, like I said. So one of the things that I recommend, high level is a smorgasbord of features and benefits. I mean, we could laundry list all the capabilities of the product, but the reality is, if you go out there and try to sell that, number one, you're going to completely overwhelm people. And number two, you're probably saying the same thing as 10,000 other of the people buying high level and trying to sell it to business owners.
Absolutely. And to your point, like I recently launched a program inside High Level called the 5-Day Challenge, where we teach brand new high levelers how to get their first customer. Not that complicated, very simple, and we keep it pretty brief and make sure the strategies are applicable. But one of the biggest things that I teach is like, only lead with one features. I know you have 500 other features to be tempted with, but only go with one feature. So like I teach missed call, text back, or reviews in general, and that's the only thing they're allowed to sell in the first interaction with the customer. And that's been working like a charm, because you're not confusing the market. You're not leading with multiple things and asking them for multiple decisions at the same time.
I agree. And one of the things that I think you hit on right there that I would even say further is that take that one thing and understand what the problem is in the niche that you're trying to penetrate. So, if and that's a missed callback is a great one to think about, because we know that home services contractors typically that are the solopreneurs. They might have their wife answering the phone still, God bless them, because they're running 90 to nothing. Sometimes they just don't answer the phone. They're on a job, they're turning wrenches, they're fixing pipes, all these things. And they have their jobber or their home services app that they're already using probably to send proposals and stuff.
Yeah.
Although I think that's a great feature. But what they don't have is missed call text,
Call text back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so you create a product that's a minimum viable product with just that. And you price it at $47 a month, $57, whatever you want to price it at. And like, dude, you have a big problem. I just called you to get an estimate. I can't even get in touch with you. Clearly, I can't be the only one. What if I could set this up for you for $57 a month?
100%. And allows you to land and expand in the business.
Land and expand. I like that. And you're building trust, right? Now, all of a sudden, he's getting these texts and he's like, this is great. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And now you're building that relationship and that connection and that trust that he knows you're not a slimy guy. And on the back end, it's super easy to set up and it's scalable. So you build your own snapshot with only this. You don't even need to give them access to anything. That's the beauty of it. They don't even need a login, right?
Yeah.
You just need access. That's it. And so then you can start opening conversations for the other things that you might be offering, whether that's, reputation management or it's funnel building or email marketing or whatever it is. But at least you have that foot in the door. And the reality of it is high level is only $500 a month. Like if you're charging 50, $100 a month, that's literally what, 5, 10 clients?
Right. That's on the low end. Most people are charging $250 to $300 for one client, and they'll set up multiple things. And, like 1 or 2 clients could pay for itself, honestly.
Yep.
So help us understand. So I get the recognition part of making sure you create a differentiated product, right? How is the replication component?
Yeah. So basically, when I think about this is we're not just reinventing the wheel, we're blinging it out a little bit. So what I like to do is look at specifically other players who are offering the same things that I'm offering. So I might go to the competitors, okay, if I'm selling missed call text back, who else is selling this? And I will literally go and look and see everything they're doing. I'll go look at their reviews. I'll see who their clients are to try and understand who's this market, what's the problem they have, and how can I replicate that prospecting strategy, that go-to-market strategy? How do I replicate everything that they're doing to be successful? And that's when you get to the third piece and I say, how can I revolutionize it? How can I make it better? How can I make it more efficient? How can I make it sound like it's coming from Amiee and not from them? What's the twist that I can put in there that they haven't thought of yet?
Absolutely. And I think that's something that agency owners forget, right? Like even corporate companies are studying each other. Like massive brands, they have secret shoppers, they have customers that are paid out to go through each other's systems and things like that. But a lot of them just collect data. They figure out different tweaks and things that you just learn and improve over time. But like the mentality should be 1% better every single day, right? Like if you slowly improve over like a 6-month period, like how much better can your product get? And that's really, I think, the key to like scaling faster.
I 100% agree. And I would also caution against trying to have everything perfect from the beginning, right? So many people get bogged down in, okay, well, I have to have my prospecting strategy nailed down and I have to have my sales strategy, my conversion strategy, my onboarding, my client management. No, you don't. You don't. Just take it step by step, see where you're messing up so you can change it. And then you have to break it to build it. I say all the time. And, like you said, even with these big companies, and I'm not, going to put myself out there, but I have totally sat on sales calls before and been like, oh, that's great. And, jotted down the strategy that they're using or the onboarding and copied it. And you can do that from other industries as well, because one of the things that I tell my clients is don't just look at what your competitor's doing. If you see somebody with a great customer support team, with a great onboarding strategy that's in a completely different industry as you, there's no reason you can't use that same ReKeying strategy to recognize, replicate, and then revolutionize it for your industry. So it works a lot of different ways, and it's easy to understand when you think of it that way, and it makes sense.
Yeah, so I think the big mistake most agencies make is like there's a lot of assumptions of like, you know what, I can just get on the SaaS plan, have a SaaS launch, SaaS funnels out there, and somehow a tree is gonna fall down and just rain a bunch of cash, right? Like these are, I don't know how people get to this thought process. Do you see that happening quite often?
Yeah, and I'd love to know where those trees are.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's a lot of the courses and trainings and other people's success, but they don't see that there was like a 3 years behind that, 3 weeks of great harvest.
Yep. Yep. Well, and I think I mean, I saw this one recently. It's this newest, the latest, greatest thing that's going to make you money on the internet. And I see the TikToks and everything else for it. And it's like, oh, I made all this money since I signed up yesterday at 3 o'clock. And all you need to do is resell this. And I'm like, dude, like PLRs and white label. And this has been around for centuries. This is nothing new. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't work that way. You still have to run it like a business. I think the theory behind it is that people think that because it's online, because there's a low barrier to entry, that you can just make a few Facebook posts and the cash register is going to start ringing. And the reality is it doesn't work that way. It will never work that way. And this is a real business, and you have to operate it like one if you want to be successful.
Right. So let's transition our conversation a little bit into what it takes to be successful in sales. Like I know we talked about the ReKeying strategies of recognize, replicating, and revolutionize, but all of that would only work if the fundamentals of sales are there, right? What should sales look like for a SaaS company or an agency, like in general? Like what does the volume of prospecting look like? Help us understand the environment of sales.
Yeah. So I think from a sales perspective, it really depends on what your goals are as a SaaS company, both from a lifestyle perspective as well as a monetary perspective. And what I like to teach people is to reverse engineer how to get to those goals. So if I have, I have a goal of making 6 figures or $100,000 a year, right? Well, obviously I need to start getting some type of traffic. I know that I need to start having conversations. And until you start doing that, you're not going to be able to calculate specifically how many calls and everything that you need to make, but you can kind of guess it. If you're relatively new at sales, you're not going to have a high conversion rate. It's going to take a lot more conversations. So if I'm grabbing my calculator, if I'm looking at achieving, $100,000 in sales in my first 12 months, and I say my average customer is going to pay me, I don't know, let me see, $500 a month divided by 78, 1282. Okay, so if I could get 3 new customers a month, because we're basing this off recurring revenue and a rule of 78, right? 3 new customers a month at $500 a month for the next 12 months, I'd be at roughly $117,000 a year after 12 months. Good on the math?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm there and I know that I need at least 3 customers a month at $500 a month, I have to figure out, obviously, well, what's my conversion rate? Well, if my conversion rate is only at 10%,
that means you gotta have 30 prospects at least.
Right. I have 30 qualified conversations. That doesn't mean I have to reach out to 30 people. That means I need book calls, baby. Right. So if I have a 2% conversion rate because I'm doing email marketing or something, well, now I'm looking at 1,500 contacts. Or responses. So you just step it back, and I have an easy spreadsheet I can actually send to you if it helps that does this. But those are the kind of things that you need to think about. So that way you have a plan and you can start changing your daily habits to say, okay, if I know I need to make 2,000 contacts this month and I have 4 weeks, that's 500 a week. And I'm only working 5 days. That's 100 a day. And then what's the best tactic for me to use? Am I going to use email? Am I going to cold call? Am I going to run ads? Am I going to do organic marketing? What does that look like? There's 1,000 different tactics. Well, it comes down to who you are behaviorally and personally. What works the best for you might not be what's best for me. So again, it goes back to, even though you saw that guy doing it, is that really the best strategy for you?
Right. Because one of the things is like everybody's energy and voice is different. And also your confidence on the offer is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of times when you're starting out with the new offer, let's say SaaS or agency, you don't know how the fulfillment is going to go. You don't know whether you can really deliver results that you're thinking you can until you feel confident and see it in person in action. And you start seeing like, oh man, I got these case studies. You'll start seeing your energy changing in how you present your offer. And it takes time. And for you to even get there, like Amiee says, you have to numerically step back those goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to numerically calculate, these are my activities now so I can harvest later. Because there's a sales cycle in place as well, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I have, you speak about confidence, and that's so true, because a lot of people, when you're just getting into this, it's really hard to get up the kahunas to say, okay, I'm just going to go do this. And they wait, like I said earlier, to make sure everything's perfect. But the problem is that action precedes confidence. Like, it's not the other way around. You have to do the thing. So what I'll tell a lot of people that are just getting started, and this is kind of like a little confidence hack for you, is that, we see social proof everywhere. Videos saying how great of a marketer this person is, or how great of a tradesman. It doesn't matter. But if you have no business yet, where do you get that from? What do you do? Well, you've probably worked with people before, maybe at a job. People, your friends, your family, who can speak to your character. So you know what? Why don't you ask them to make a video for you? Hey, do you mind taking 2 to 3 minutes and tell me, comment on my character as far as how I was as a coworker, how I was as a leader, as a manager. Hey, I have 2 videos from my kids talking about me as a business mom, right? And they're not posted anywhere. You're not going to see them. But when I have those days where it's like, you know what? I don't know if I have the confidence to do this, or I'm jumping into a new launch or something new, like we're about to launch a podcast. I'll go look at those and be like, damn it, I got this. And it does give you that little confidence boost a little bit.
Yeah, because it only takes a little bit of confidence to get your first client.
That's
It doesn't
right.
take much. And I think those are great stepping stones to just get going. And looking back, my first agency, I had a dental agency and an automotive agency. The first one in the dental world was kind of scary because it was a whole new world, very saturated. And I came from the medical space, so I felt comfortable going after a medical industry, which I probably should have never done because it was one of the most difficult things to do. But either way, what I did looking back, I don't know if you remember like the Be Live software where you can
Yeah.
stream in an external social platform or a personal profile. So I would reach out to a bunch of these dentists that I had just connected with. I don't know anything about them. They're not my clients. I'm not their marketer. And I would simply be like, hey, I know you are someone who has a great name in the community. You seem like a professor in the dental space or an author, or like I looked at these high profiles and I would ask them, hey, can you just do a quick interview with me and tell us about clinical things that you see that should be different? So these top players would jump on a podcast with me. Oh, Paulson, great guy. Let me tell you the clinical infections around veneers, right? And they would literally talk about all their frustrations on clinical side. And I started collecting these interviews in my profiles with BeLive. And it got to a point where marketers and other folks thought I was a dentist. They were like, wait, like this isn't making sense. So then when I started doing my cold outreach, all these dentists would look me up and they're like, well, if Professor Ball was on a podcast with him, he must be a trustworthy guy. And that's literally how I started building momentum. Even when I didn't have them as a client, I still leveraged top players in the space to kind of put myself aligned with those top players. And it worked.
But you know, that's what's so awesome about it. And what you were doing was actually you were just giving them value as well
Right.
as educating yourself. And I think
Correct.
when that's something that builds trust. You were building trust with them and with the audience and the people that trust in, like, you're just playing off the trust that those people already
Yeah.
have.
Yep. And I did, it's looking back, like I did the same thing when live streams came out. When live streams came out, I would reach out to some of the dentist people that I was already working with, and they would be like upgrading their office or a new paint job or getting a new equipment. And I would go in their office and do a live stream. Hey, check out what Dr. Wynn got on his new equipment. And it's literally just me inside a dental practice. We didn't talk about marketing. I just literally just walk through, and this is way before like compliance was like a big thing. So like
Right.
this live stream, so my entire profile is just full of dental content. And that's literally how we started off. So like going back to Amie's recommendation of like everybody can start where they are, get your friends and family to vouch for you, then get small number of clients to kind of get going. I think these are great strategies, and it should give you a lot of confidence if you're watching this starting off. Amiee, help us understand also the scaling component. Once you have started, what are some things that you have seen on agencies making mistakes or SaaS companies making mistakes on possibly scaling or keeping customers and retention?
Yeah. So, well, to answer your first question, the challenge with scaling, they won't delegate responsibilities. And the reason they can't delegate responsibility is because they don't have the processes. All the processes are in their head. So they've been doing them for so long and not documenting them that now the thought of sitting with someone to teach them like all this stuff that I have and you could never learn, right? Because that's what we think, is overwhelming, right? So what I would recommend is that you start from the get-go as you're doing this. And like I said earlier, when you're stair stepping it, when you say, okay, this is going to be my onboarding plan. Well, do it manually the first time and then build your process off of that. And what I do, I record everything as I'm going through it. I just set up my screen recorder and it might be an hour-long recording. And I'll send it over to my VA and he will document that sucker. He will build everything in it. He will build out our workflows. He throws them in our folder and they're done. And let me tell you that a lot of the VAs, especially the ones that work with high level, they're very proficient. And a lot of times I will send them a message and say, hey, look, I'm trying to do this. Can you do it faster for me? And the cool thing about it is that they're very good at it. Not everybody is process oriented. And they can just knock it out.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I mean, also, we know that high level is pretty overwhelming. It's complicated. It's huge. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of features. So if you have a remote team member or a VA saying, "Hey, I'm good at high level," that already tells you their capability as an individual. Like
Yeah.
they have to be kind of advanced with automations or even language or even copy or marketing skills to be good at high level. So like typically high level VAs are good at multiple things and they kind of seem to be a lot more elevated. But I love the recommendation here that you should start documenting these processes, and entrepreneurs usually fail because they have to go backwards of like 4 years of building before they get to that first
Uh-huh.
employee, and they're like, holy crap, I don't know, I don't even know where to start. And then the trust factor, like it's hard to trust another person to do what you were doing.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the scaling component in how you can start delegating?
Yeah, so I would start off small. I typically tell people, I actually had this conversation yesterday with a client. I said, look, it's like, when do I hire? Do I wait to get the business or do I do it now? And I said, well, typically I look at three things. Am I, turning away business because I don't have anybody, I literally can't do any more work. Am I so burnt out that I can't take away a weekend with my family kind of thing? Those are the things I look at. And if so, somebody else is coming on board. Um, but I would start with, like I said, once you have at least one or two of those processes documented, make sure that you understand what you want in someone. I think it's really important that you look at who is the person that's going to fit for this job. right? You are not, if you see somebody who's like a high D or a high I and they're super exuberant like me and all across the board, they are not going to be a good process person for you. So you
Right.
have to understand what you're looking for in someone in order to start delegating those processes and be able to scale. Because if you aren't okay with delegating work that's coming in, you will never be able to scale the business. You know, and on the flip side of that, from a client perspective, because you asked me about churn earlier, you have to really set expectations with clients, because it's very easy to get a scope of work and then have a client call you and they kind of not nickel and dime you, but they ask, you know, oh, well, can you do this for me too? Because they think you're their expert. And so what do we do, especially in the new phases? You're like, sure, I can do that. I can do it. I can do it. And all of a sudden you're making $4 an hour because you've done pimped yourself out for something you're not getting paid for. I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah, no, I get it because a lot of people, they feel bad saying no to clients. Like I remember my second client ever. It was an allergist here in Houston, and I went there in person, went above board. I mean, I had a collared shirt on and made sure I impressed their whole staff. Like a week later, one of their computers go down, and they call me middle of the night. They're like, "Hey, Paulson, can you come fix our computer?" And I'm like, holy crap. They thought I'm a computer guy
Yeah.
because I was working on the computer, even though I was dealing with marketing stuff.
Mhm.
My first lesson of realizing, oh, I didn't set the expectations right of what I do, what I don't do. But great point that you're making, especially in scaling. You have to have an assembly line that is predictable, an assembly line that has the right expectations with your customers, and then that reflects your internal team members and how they function.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And, you know, don't go outside of that. If you start saying, like, you know, I had somebody telling me not too long ago that they were approached to build a whole custom CRM with all these automations and bells and whistles and everything else through High Level. And they got down the wormhole with it. And they're like, this is the worst thing that I've ever done. And it's like, because this is outside of your scope. Like, you were doing all this and all of a sudden your eyes got dollar signs in them and you thought this was going to be a great project, but the reality is it just bogged you down and it took you off of that scaling trajectory. So it's really, you know, you have to be solid in what you're going to productize off of High Level, what that's going to look like, and what you're not going to
Right.
do.
Because the last thing we would want you to do is sell your time and let high level be the facilitation of you selling your time. The whole idea for us to build SaaS that is literally white labeled for you is so you don't sell your time. Like
Right.
otherwise we could have just done the same thing and just said, hey, go sell Facebook ad services all day long. You don't need automations and make it even difficult, right? So
Yep.
it's really important from a SaaS component. You look at this as, I would say, a utility, right? Like like a water bill that they literally pay you all day long, and there's no fulfillment behind it except for the automations.
Yep. Set it and forget it.
Absolutely. So, Amiee, I appreciate you jumping in. We talked about a lot of different things when it comes to sales and launching agencies and SaaS and things like that. We talked about the ReKeying strategies of recognizing, replicating, revolutionizing, and then we talked a lot about just how sales environment really is and also scaling. So, I want to just first of all appreciate you. Any final words you want to tell all of our SaaSpreneurs and high-level users? I know thousands of people are going to be watching this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, just, you know, if you're struggling, take a step back and reassess what you've been doing. Think about what you're trying to get out of this and just take a day, take a half a day if it's too much, and really kind of start trying to put those pieces together of what that looks like and what's going to work best for you versus trying to just jump in with the herd going 100 miles an hour or hitting the same brick wall.
Absolutely. Well, those are great words. I don't want to add to it. I appreciate you. Amiee, how can
Yeah.
people find you? Do you have a Instagram handle, Facebook handle, website, anywhere? If people want to reach out, they can.
Yep. So I'm all over Facebook all the time. I have Instagram and I think Facebook copies to my Instagram.
Yeah.
And so, but Facebook's probably the best way to get in touch with me because I check those messages typically every day, once a day. So
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Amiee. Have a good rest of your afternoon. For those of you that are watching our podcast, if you're brand new and don't even have a high level account, consider jumping into a trial, and hopefully we can treat you right and onboard you properly. But Amiee, hope to see you in one of our masterminds or our conference coming up if you're able to make it. But either way, thank you.
No problem, Paulson. Good talking to you.